I learned to question adults about things that they had never even thought of. And I found out that there's all kinds of interesting knowledge if you just want to know.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know. Well, then, if you want to know a little knowledge, it'll cost you a little bit.
So who
If
was?
you want,
Yeah.
if you want to know a little more knowledge, well, that'll cost you a little bit more. If you want to really get smart and go to college, well, then that's really going to cost you. But you're gaining knowledge. Knowledge is power, and you don't get the power of knowledge for free. You pay for it. And when you start going into the world around you and looking at all of the hidden wisdom and knowledge of the world you live in and how it really works, boy, will you find out that there's a whole world that you didn't know about. And it really became scary at one time, but I got to where I enjoyed looking at questions that no one had ever thought to ask, and then meeting people who knew the answers. So that's what I do now. I do radio shows and I talk about the institutions that we humans live under and how we got them. Where did our churches come from? Where did our belief systems come from? Where do our ideas and technology, where do we get those ideas and how do we come by those technologies? And the more I learned, the more I found out how much we don't know as humans.
One of the common questions I think that's becoming, with the whole terminology of conspiracy theory and deep state is, and this is a two-part question for you, Jordan. How do you define New World Order in your view, in your understanding, and was Fidel Castro, was he a Vatican puppet?
He was obviously a Vatican puppet. My description of New World Order is a Jesuit intrigue going on in the world today in the Vatican as it impacts the governments of the world. The Vatican has a division that is doing nothing but manipulating world politics. And the people who are in charge of that is a military order in the Catholic Church. It's military, not religious. They're called Jesuits. And the Jesuits are very, very profoundly wise and intelligent people, guys, who know how to run the world. They know how banks work. They know how insurance companies work. They know how military thinks. They know how the world works. And they're behind the scenes manipulating governments, banking institutions, wars, crime, organized crime, mafiosis, underworld organizations. They're all connected to the Catholic Church by the Jesuits. And that's a hell of a subject, boy, when you get into the Jesuit intrigue going on throughout the world with assassinations of presidents and fires and wars and violence that break out around the world. That's all been planned by the powers that be in the Vatican and are being executed around the world by Jesuits. That's what I call the New World Order. It's really quite a dark story.
How does the New World Order, as springing from the Vatican, how does that parallel, if you will, with the Elders of Zion or some of these conspiratical, very powerful Jewish organizations?
Yes, well, you need to know that both of those organizational arrangements, the Vatican and World Judaism, there is a story that is really going to shock people when they see it for the first time, because nobody has been able to talk about it in public. But there is a definite connection between the religion of the Judaism, the normal, regular Jewish religion in the world today, around the world, and they have different factions as Christians do too. But generally speaking, the Jewish religion is connected directly with the Nazi religion of Adolf Hitler. And Nazism and Judaism are working together. And it's an incredible story when you first are introduced to the idea. You think this is ludicrous, but it's not ludicrous. It's life. And you begin to see the connection behind the scenes because the German people share a common ancestry with the Jewish people. Judaism and Germany are very succinctly connected behind the world scene. So the things you see going on in Germany today, just look for Jewish influence in these occurrences, whatever it is in war and the decisions that the Germans are making. I mean, because Adolf Hitler, he made it famous. He made the idea famous for the Nazis not to intermarry with the common people. They were a special and holy priesthood, and their symbol was a swastika. Well, today in Israel, if you go to Israel or go on the web and type in swastika in Israel, you will see there's a lot of different synagogues that have swastikas in mosaic rendering on the floor, on walls, showing swastikas. The same Nazi kind of swastika you see in Nazi Germany are in synagogues in Israel. And in Israel, a synagogue is spelled S-I-N-A-G. But in the rest of the world, the Gentile world, is spelled S-Y-N-G. So there's a difference between S-I-N and S-Y-N. And there's a reason why, because Israel is promoting the worship of Sin, S-I-N, which was a Babylonian Sumerian god in the ancient prehistoric world. In that area of the world we call today the land of Canaan is called Israel. But Israel, thousands of years ago, was called the land of Canaan. And in the land of Canaan, they worshipped a god called Baal, B-A-A-L. Baal was a sun. And the reason why the people of the ancient Israel call the land of Canaan is because they realized it was heating the earth and giving us life. And it was our risen Savior. Of course it was your risen Savior. Nothing on the earth lives without the sun, without the heat and the warmth. So, so once you see the connection between Judaism and Nazism, that's when you see the idea that Jews do not want to intermarry with Gentiles because they are superior people and they are God's chosen people, and God said don't have anything to do with the evil Gentiles. So therefore, like Hitler, one of the most important things about being a Nazi is that you don't want to intermarry or have anything to do with the Gentiles. You have only your life to live with other Nazis. If you're going to get married, that's fine. You don't have to get married. But if you're going to get married, you marry another Nazi. And so all kinds of interesting connections behind the scenes in monetary, education, religion, theocracy, all connect Judaism to the Nazi Party. So, and why was there so much hatred and so much destruction and violence against the people in Germany by the Germans? Well, the most important part is that if you go back into German history, you will see the man who actually got Hitler involved in Nazism. His name was, what was his name? Do you recall the man?
No.
What was his name?
I know that Hitler was raised Catholic, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was raised Catholic, and that's why the Pope still today wears a Jewish yarmulke. The little skull cap that the Jews wear, that's what the Pope wears. There's a reason. There's a connection between a Roman Catholic religion. Ancient Rome's religion was called Catholic. Why? Because Catholic is a word in Latin which means over the whole earth. It's everywhere. So therefore we could say the air is Catholic because it's everywhere. People are Catholic. Why? Because they're everywhere. They're all over the map. They're all over the globe. So anything that's all over the globe is called Catholic. And Latin means universal. It's everywhere. And so Rome connected the whole world under the Caesar, under the empire, and became known as a Roman religion of the world, or the world religion of Rome. Roman Catholic. Catholic means universal. And so, but I like, when I'm talking to a new audience, I like to draw attention to some of the little Mickey Mouse things around us that we don't know. That's kind of interesting. It catches people's attention. For instance, a lot of people do not know that when you are driving and the police pull you over, you get the lights come on behind you and you pull over, and the cop walks up to the car, and after talking with you, he decides to give you a ticket. And he's writing out this ticket. Well, that's the same thing you get when you go to Sears to buy a pair of shoes. They're going to give you a ticket, and you're expected to pay the ticket. And so when the cop is writing out the ticket, the police are writing out the ticket, he's writing it out, and he's filling it out himself, and he signs it. Then he hands it to you in the car, and you sign it. Now it is expected that you will pay the ticket. But that's not the way it works. You are a co-signer on a ticket in commerce. It's a commercial document. It represents money. Somebody's going to pay because it's a ticket in commerce, and it belongs to the cop. It's his ticket, and he signed it first. So you are an undersigner. You are a co-signer. And the way you can handle it, I mean, I'm not suggesting anybody do what I'm saying, but just understand you can do it. I've seen it done where you take that ticket and photocopy it and put it with an affidavit and send it to the Secretary of State in which you live and tell the Secretary of State, I am sorry, I made a mistake. I signed as a co-signer on a ticket that I did not want to sign. I did not realize I was doing that until today, so I would like to be dropped off of this ticket. I don't want to co-sign it. And so then the Secretary of State will send that letter with the ticket to your Department of Commerce in your state that handles corporate business, and they will send out an article to the police department, and it will go to and so that ticket goes to the policeman that wrote it to you, right. and he has to pay it, not you.
Interesting.
You are a co-signer, and you decided not to co-sign, so that means he's got to pay it.
And that relates to the straw man concept?
Yes. Well, it relates to it, yeah, but basically it does, but there's a big subject we could talk about for 8 hours, and they'd even cover anything twice. There's a whole world of knowledge that we just have never been told as Americans. Most people today are referred to as U.S. citizens. But if you look it up correctly in the law dictionary, a U.S. citizen is not considered an American. You are a United States citizen, a U.S. citizen, not an American. Therefore, you do not have the protections of an American. You are not living under the Constitution. You're not living under the Bill of Rights. You don't have any rights. Why? Because in 1870, in 1860s, we had a civil war in this country, which we are told was extraordinarily bloody and very, very violent. And after that war was over, the United States was all kinds of things except united. The one thing we were all sure of is we're not united. We just got to having a bloody war, killing our fellow Americans.
Yeah.
So we're not united. So therefore, the powers that be, the banking families and the big shots who run the country, from behind the scenes, the organized criminal element that was running the country, decided, well, all right, we're not going to be organized anymore into one country that's united. We're not going to be united. So how are we going to run the country if it's not united? Because you still got millions of people who want to go to school, who want to eat, who want to have jobs, who want to buy cars. You've got people who are going to live, whether you like it or not. So what are you going to do with all these people if we're not united? It was brilliantly decided by some really crafty criminals, that instead of being a republic, the United States as a republic, a governmental system,
right.
No, we will take it out of the United States governmental system, and we will found a corporation, a privately owned company. And back east, there was a company formed as a corporation, and it was called the United States Incorporated, United States Corporation. And it was decided that anyone who was a member of that corporation worked for the corporation called United States. And so you became known as a U.S. citizen. And so a U.S. citizen is not an American. A U.S. citizen is someone who works for a corporation. And the corporation is called United States Incorporated. And of course, all corporations have to have a president. So we got a president. And according to the law, all corporations have to have a vice president. Okay, so we got a vice president. All corporations must have a secretary treasurer. Okay, we have a secretary treasurer. But that doesn't mean that it's a republic. You're not living in the United States of America. You're living in a corporation like Ford Motor Company, like General Electric. It's a big corporation. And so therefore you are a U.S. citizen. And if you come into this country, you think you're slipping in across the border, say from Mexico, you're coming in illegally, you don't realize what you are doing. You think you're slipping in and being clever to slip into the country. But what you're actually doing is you're slipping into the grounds of a privately owned corporation called United States Corporation. So when you come across the border, it's like you going to a city and breaking into Ford Motor Company. You go in at 2 o'clock in the morning, you go in and bust the window and get inside the corporation. And you think that's clever, but you are illegally inside the property of a corporation. And that's when you come across the border. You are illegally inside of a company's property. And what you don't know is called a corporation.
So, Jordan, go ahead. You have something else? Continue with what you
I was just going to say, and because of that, you can, because your body, you broke into a corporation's property, they can put a lien on you, a lien like a mechanic's lien. If I paint your house and you don't pay me, I can put a lien on your house. And so there is a lien put on you by the corporation called United States Corporation. You don't know that, of course. You're not made aware of any of this. But there is a lien on you, and therefore you become known as an alien. An alien. A lien has been put on you. You're not an alien from another world, from another planet. No, a lien has been put on your body. So you are an alien. And like I said, I don't expect anyone. I would go so far as to say I would highly recommend just educating yourself as to how the world really works. But do not try and do anything about it, because the powers that be over this country are so ruthless, and they have no care about the American people. They only care about documented workers. They only care about the people who are living here who are U.S. citizens. A U.S. citizen is not an American. He does not have the protections of a constitution. And besides, most people don't know there are two separate constitutions in America. One is the Constitution for the United States, and there's another Constitution of the United States of America. Well, there's a big difference between for and of, and you'll find that out when you go to court. And then you find out why it is you have to go to court, because you play tennis on a court. You play basketball on a court. That's why you go to court, because it's a ball game. It's just a game. So when you go to court, both sides have their team. We call them a team of lawyers. And your team of lawyers gets up and throws the ball back in the other guy's court. And that team of lawyers quickly picks up the ball and throws it back at you. And so, therefore, it's a ball game. It's a game. And in all games where there's money and a lot of important things going on, you're going to have an umpire. So the umpire wears black in a ball game. And so the umpire in the game of law wears a black robe. Black robes were always associated with the planet Saturn. A black robe is called a Saturnian robe. It is a robe associated with the planet Saturn. And why? Because Saturn was known in the ancient world as being an inhibitor, one who could hold you back and teach you a lesson. And so gangs, motorcycle gangs and gangs are called Saturnian gangs, meaning they are able to harm you. They're able to kidnap and harm you because of Saturnian. That's what Saturn was known to do in the ancient world. He would hold you back and teach you a lesson. And therefore the military was Saturnian, the church was Saturnian, the police department was Saturnian. And why do you go to court? Well, like I said, you go to court because you play tennis on a court. Now, how do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket. You think these words are by chance? They're not by chance. There's a reason why when you play tennis, you're playing with a racket. And when you go to court, it's a tennis game, and it's got one team against the other. And the judge is a referee. He wears the black robe, which is the black robe of the planet Saturn. Saturn is the official god of the Jewish religion today. Saturn is the god of Judaism. So this is why so many Jews are into courts, into law, and into business. Jews, you will find, mostly are into being lawyers. And that's why, is because the god of Judaism is the planet Saturn. Saturn is referred to as the god of the black robe. That's why Catholic priests wear black robes. Judges wear black robes. Darth Vader wears black robes.
Yeah.
And all the evil underworld, darkness of night kind of people wear black robes. The priests of these rituals wear black robes. It's just fascinating when you see how the world actually works, and that you yourself are an animal. You are not considered by law in America to be a man or a woman. You are not a man or a woman. You are an animal. And you see that in the way that the government treats you. You are considered to be an animal, and there's a whole study of that concept, and so many things going on in my mind I'd like to talk about. It's very important for you to understand that. Male and female on your identification when you're signing and you're showing your driver's license or anything like that. When you go and buy a new car and you buy the car with your money, you get something with the car. It's called an operator's manual.
Right.
Okay, but that's because you, at the time you bought the car, you're buying it for yourself. So you are referred to as an operator of the automobile. But if you're buying that car or that truck or that motorcycle or that tank or whatever it is you're buying with wheels, if you're buying it to make money, you're no longer an operator. According to the law, if you're going to use those wheels in commerce, you are a driver. You are a truck driver, a bus driver. You are driving, which means you are making money with those. And so now it's a business. You're making money with those wheels, therefore you are now in business, and therefore you have to have a license to do business. So now, if you're going to use that car as a cab, you better get a driver's license. Not a license to maneuver the car around the city. No, a license because you're doing business. It's called a business license. And so when you get married, most people don't know it's a business, pure and simple.
Interesting.
And so it is quite simply a business. Well, if I see you come out of a restaurant one night and I happen to be out in the parking lot, I see you come out with a particular woman, and I say to you the next day, you know that woman you were with last night? Yeah. And you say, yep. I said, she is bad trouble. You better watch out for her because she is nothing but bad company. And you say, mind your own business. Business, company, and you're going to get married, and she's going to be your partner. These are words that are used in the world of commerce, a partner with business and company. So all of a sudden, mind your business means I'm in business, and therefore, if I'm going to get married, it's a business venture. And if you make the wrong decision and marry the wrong partner, well, if you marry the wrong partner, you're not going to go to God. You're going to court. And you better bring everything you own because it's nothing but a business. It's always just been a business. But if your business doesn't happen to work out, well, that's your problem. You need to think about who you're going to be partnering with in business world.
So is the United States influenced more in the way it conducts itself, the corporation thereof, more through the influence of Jesuit or Catholic laws, or that of Judaic,
Rome,
Jewish laws?
Well, United States is a Roman entity. We are, in point of fact, by law, considered to be the new Rome. The new Rome. Why? Because when Caesar overtook Britannia, when he was able to overtake all of Europe and finally he had to go across the water into Britain and take over Britain before he would feel satisfied he's got everything. So he went into Britain and set up the Roman Empire's rule in Britain. And where was that? Where was the headquarters for Caesar's government in Britain? It was in a city called York, England. And so therefore the Vatican, or Caesar of Rome, was ruling Britannia all over the world from York, England. Well, today we have a worldwide organization like Caesar's operation in New York. It's called the Empire State. And New York is the home of the new United Nations. The United Nations has a wreath around it, the same wreath that the Caesars would wear when they conquered our country. After the war, they would wear these wreaths on their head. And so the one thing I want to get to quickly is that we humans are not considered to be man or woman. You're not considered to be a man or a woman. Why? Because if you go to the Styles magazine, the United States Styles magazine is published in Chicago for the U.S. government. And what the Styles magazine is, it tells you all the words and terms that are used in federal and state and international governments, and what those words mean when used by the federal government. Not by you, they don't mean the same thing. But if you want to know what the words mean, get a Styles magazine. You can buy it from the U.S. government. Chicago Styles magazine. And it will tell you what words mean in government. So when you walk into a courtroom, you better know what you're talking about, or you're going to jail. Because if you use a term that you think you understand out on the street with the rest of us, that's not what it means in a court. It doesn't mean that at all. They already know what those words mean. And so the government publishes it for you to study. And so there's, and my goodness, there's so many things I'd like to tell you about. When you sign a piece of paper, it tells me whether you are a man or a woman or an animal. And the way you can tell the difference is the way your name is spelled. If you use all uppercase letters, that represents you as a corporation. You are a company. You are a corporation if you see your name in all capital letters. And that's what you have on your driver's license, your insurance company, your identification, period. All your ID is always in all capital letters. Why? Because all capital letters internationally around the world means it's a corporation, a company. And you are a company. You are a corporation. And therefore, you are a corporation and your name is in all capital letters. And that's why when you are, as a company, when you pass away and you leave this world, you are now a company that's been defunct. You're out of business. And so that's why when you drive by graveyards, you will see the names of the people who were working as a company, a corporation. And on the tombstones, the names are in all capital letters. And so therefore, that means that they were a corporation, but now they're no longer in business. They're defunct in the business world. They're out of business. They're dead. And so where does all this come from? It comes from something called maritime admiralty, the law of water. There are two kinds of law on the earth, and most people do not realize that. There's two kinds of law on the earth, going all the way back to Proto-Roman Empire. The international bankers and politicians of this world, the popes, have always known there are two kinds of law. A law of the land and the law of the water. The law of land is called common law. It's the law of the land, which means it's the law of the people who live on a particular piece of land. But you can do things in South Africa on the land that you can't do in Russia. You can do things here in America you can't do in Spain, because every country has its own law of the land. And that means the customs of the people that live on the land. But then there is another kind of law called the law of the sea, the law of water, maritime admiralty. The law of water is very powerful because it represents money. Money goes through your hands like water. No, money is water by international agreement. Money, going back to the Roman Empire, was called a liquid asset. So that's why when you have money, you put it in a bank. Why do you have a bank? Banks are on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency. because your money is an ebb and flow. It comes in, it goes out, comes in, it goes out, like the waves of the sea. And so money is considered to be liquid asset, and therefore it has a flow. And it comes in, it goes out. And so you put it into a bank, which is a river bank. And the river bank directs the flow of the current. And we call it currency.
This makes a lot of sense. Continue, please.
Well, I was just going to say, and so when a ship pulls into port, a big ocean going, the big trading ships of the world, when those big ships come into port, everything on that ship has to be accounted for. So therefore, let's say a ship comes in with $700 million worth of Toyotas or televisions or whatever. Well, they're going to have paperwork done on each and every item. Each item has to be itemized. Does it have 2 legs? Does it have 2 arms? Does it have 2 eyes? What color is it? Where is it from? And that's why when you are born, you have to have all that information on a piece of paper, and you will find out your birth certificate is actually on banking security paper, on legitimate bank security paper. And look on the bottom left-hand corner of the document. It will tell you that this document called your birth, it's a certificate for you. So it's called a birth certificate. And why? Because when a ship pulls in, where it stops and where it parks at is called its berth, called berthing a ship. And so your mother was a ship, and she's in a maritime admiralty. And your father, he was the man, he was the one who manufactured. And your mother was in what's the word? Your father manufactures, the mother was in labor. Uh-huh. She was building what he has manufactured. And therefore you are the product of a maritime admiralty relationship. You came out of your mother's water. You came down the birth canal and came out of her water. So since you came out of water, you are considered to be an international maritime admiralty product. And therefore you have to have a certificate of telling us who you are and how much you weigh and what color are you and who do you belong to, and etc. And so it's all called a birth certificate. And so you have a birth certificate. What you don't know your birth certificate is worth approximately $7 to $9 million on the New York Stock Exchange. You don't know that. Why? Because we never told you. You're not supposed to know that. I know that because I sat with the international bankers and heard how this stuff works. Your birth certificate is worth millions of dollars on the stock market of the world, on the New York Stock Exchange. And if you call one of those stock companies like Standard & Poor, one of those companies that keeps track on all stock, period, and you tell them that you were cleaning your grandmother's garage and you found this old certificate for a stock and want to know if it's any good, they'll say, yes, give us that stock number. You take your Social Security card and look on the back of the Social Security card. The numbers on the front show that you are a member of a corporation called United States Corporation, and that's your connection to your employment, is that numbers on the front of a Social Security. But on the back of a Social Security card is another set of numbers, and if you take that back of the Social Security card and line it up with the numbers, the serial numbers on a $1 bill, you will see, if you line them up, lay the back of the Social Security card just above the numbers on the dollar bill, you will see they match. They all have letters and numbers. And so the numbers on the back of your Social Security card represents your flesh and blood body. Your body is on the New York Stock Exchange, being bought and sold every day by big corporations. They are using you as a security. And that's why when you get old and you can't work, you're going home to retire and you're not going to work anymore, they give you something called Social Security. Why? Because you and your body is a security worth millions of dollars on the stock exchange, which the corporation called United States has been buying and selling you around the world. If they owe Germany, if they owe, America owes another country millions of dollars, they'll put your birth certificate in. And that's worth $8 to $10 million or $7 to $10 million. And so they're paying off bills around the world, big bills, with your birth certificate. That's why if you have a daughter and she's getting married, and the guy she's marrying is going to be very wealthy, coming from a very wealthy family, you say things like, well, he's of good stock.
Right.
And I say, what is she marrying, a cow? Is she marrying a bull or a cow? No, she's marrying a very nice young man who's very wealthy, and he's of good stock. Well, does that tell me that your daughter is of common stock? She's just common, but he has money, so he's of good stock. And so once you begin to see how humans are made into animals, we are considered to be animals by the corporation. And your Social Security number on the back of your Social Security card represents your blood. And when you find out that you cannot get money for that, even though your Social Security companies in New York will tell you it's worth $7 million or $9 million. It's usually right around $7 to $9 million per person. And they know how much you're worth, and they can use that $9 million. Well, it'd be smart if you used it. If you have a home and you can't pay for it, then what are you going to do? You're going to go try and borrow money to pay off the home, so now you'll be in trouble for the rest of your life. No, why don't you just use the money that's in the stock market? You got 7 to 9 million in the stock market on the back of your Social Security card. Why don't you just sell 1 million? Tell the security companies in New York, sell off 1 million. Give me $1 million. I need $1 million. They can then sell off that 1 million off of your 9 million. Now you're only worth 8 million. Well, who cares? You just got $1 million handed to you based on your Social Security card. And you cannot get cash. You cannot do that. That's why I'm saying again, don't try and do anything about what I'm telling you. Just learn about it. Educate yourself how the world really works. Then you will see there's no reason for you to lose your home or your jet plane or whatever else you bought, your yacht, and now you don't have the money to pay for it. Why don't you just pay it off with the credit that's on your stock in the New York Stock Exchange? It's worth millions. So if you sell off, say $1 million off of that stock, that pays all your bills and you're home free, and you're still worth $8 million. You'd always go back and get some more if you needed it.
So how do you do that?
You have to sign an affidavit that's on the International Maritime Admiralty Law, and there is a way to do that on the New York Stock Exchange. I think if you go on, because there have been many intelligent guys who work on the stock exchange who know what I'm talking about, and they are telling you, if you go on YouTube and just put in on the YouTube, type in birth certificate, the value of birth certificate, or millions for a birth certificate, something like that. Put something with birth certificate and money in the bank, and it will pop up on YouTube with lectures by people who are in banking, who are in the stock market trading, and they would tell you about how your body is worth millions on the stock exchange, but you're not being told that. Why? Because the government, the U.S. corporation, is a privately owned company, and you are working for it, and so therefore they're using your body to create money for them. They need for their corporation. Well, hell, I need money for my corporation. So where do I get it? I get it from the same place they get it. The government gets it. Get it out of my Social Security card.